Akuji, the Heartless.
After having his heart ripped out and cursed on his wedding night by his very own brother, and you thought your family had issues, Akuji, now banished to the underworld, must strike a deal with the Baron of the underworld, Baron Samedi, in order to regain his life and save his love, who is scheduled to be executed by Akuji's brother. The deal? Akuji must purge the underworld of his ancestors' souls, which have tainted the underworld. To best describe Akuji the Heartless, if Gex and Soul Reaver had an illegitimate child, it would look exactly like Akuji. Akuji keeps the platformer design of Gex, but infuses it with the dark, moody atmosphere of Soul Reaver. In other words, it's like a platformer version of Soul Reaver. But seeing as Akuji was released by Crystal Dynamics, who developed both of the previously two mentioned games, and even runs on the Gex engine which powers all three, you can see why there's a similar feel to both, even if Akuji did release before the ever-delayed Soul Reaver. Though Akuji suffers from some camera and control issues, it is still a worthy play for platformer/adventure gamers. Quality level designs with a moody atmosphere, and for PS1 standards, good graphics, as the Gex engine is, in my personal opinion, the best 3D engine on the PS1, looking the best in Soul Reaver. The music accents the atmosphere well, and the voice acting is good too, Akuji himself being voiced by Richard Roundtree, or TV's Shaft. Released in North America under the budget title name Board Game Top Shop, don't let its cutesy look dissuade you from playing this incredibly addictive virtual board game. Top Shop most closely resembles Monopoly. Players go throughout the playing field, spending their funds to open shops in empty squares. If your opponent lands on your shop, they are forced to buy items, which gives you money. As the game goes on, the entire board becomes filled with shops for you and your opponents to land in. Each shop has a set number of items to be purchased. If you land on your own shop, you are given the chance to buy items to restock one of your stores that you open. Get there too late and your opponent can buy out the inventory and your shop to open up their own. When you pass the bank, you get paid and have the ability to spend points you acquire when you're forced to purchase items. You can even roll special cards that can help you or hurt you. Top Shop's biggest appeal is its multiplayer, where you and 5 of your friends can battle it out for hours if needed. There is also a story mode for those playing alone, or you can play multiplayer against computer opponents. Board Game Top Shop is incredibly addictive. This is one that I can easily suggest for those who have gaming party nights with friends, or even parents looking for a game to play with their young children. Though the cutesy visuals can be overlooked, the repetitive music, however, cannot be shut off, and the rounds can literally last for hours. Luckily, you can save in the middle of games. Overall, this is one for those with tolerances for niche titles. Rival schools. Have you ever been angry enough to fight someone for insulting your school? Yeah, me neither. But the Japanese seem to take it really seriously. There is a fight in my mind as to if Rival Schools is my favorite 3D fighting game on the PS1, or if Soul Blade edges, no pun intended, it out with its extremely addictive Edge Master mode. Some days I'm convinced I believe either one or the other. However, what you have here is easily Capcom's best 3D fighter of all time. Street Fighter EX? Nah. Star Gladiator or Plasma Sword? Please. Power Stone? Amazing and unique, but I'd still take Rival Schools any day of the week. Think of a game that takes all of the amazing things Capcom accomplished in 2D in the 90s, and not only translates them successfully into 3D, but makes them all work seamlessly and perfectly. It's all here. There are plenty of Hadoukens to be thrown, screen-flashing super moves, air juggles, combos, team-up maneuvers, and so much more. The only thing that seems to be missing is a tag feature, but you can switch characters in between bouts. Other than that, Rival Schools shines in that it gets everything right. It's just a blast to play. It even has Sakura from Street Fighter as a playable character. Rival Schools comes in 2 discs. Disc 1 is the arcade disc and has the story mode elements, so long as you choose members of the same school. And there's also the Evolution disc, which has more modes, like the really in-depth and fun training mode, more 2-player options, and my personal favorite, unlockable minigames, like a home run derby, a volleyball mode where you get points by hitting icons of characters' heads, and even a player versus player soccer game where one kicks and the other one tries to block it. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to open up these options to show you in this video, and I couldn't find my old save for the game before making this video. The mini-games are probably the best games of their type in any PS1 fighting game. They certainly put Tekken Ball mode to shame. From what I come to understand, there was a creative player quest mode in the original Japanese version, but due to localization issues, meaning translating a bunch of text from Japanese to English within the time frame that this had to be released, it was cut from the North American release. Cutting the creative mode seems to be a trend in other PS1 games as well, but more on that later. Overall, this is a great game for any fighting game fan. Whether you like 2D or 3D fighting, this is a must play. The only downside is that it's starting to jump up in price, but it's still not as expensive as a third game in this series localized in North America as Project Justice on the Dreamcast. This was one of my best $20 bargain bin buys on the PS1. Be sure if you're buying it online you get both discs. Don't let the online sellers screw you by selling you only one disc, even if both discs serve as standalone games. Victory! So what happens when Singletrack, developer of the first two Twisted Metal games, loses the Sony-owned Twisted Metal license to 989 Studios, who developed Twisted Metal 3 and 4? Well, aside from developing games like Critical Depth and, Streak, you get Rogue Trip Vacation 2012. A game that plays almost exactly like Twisted Metal, but with its own refinements and spin on the formula. The year is 2012, and the world has become a wasteland destroyed by pollution. And to quote the game's manual,
leisure travel has become illegal, turning the enjoyable pastime of holiday travel into a kill-or-be-killed event. We're looking for a few greedy scoundrels like yourself to stick it to the fat cats that control the only remaining vacation spots on Earth, and make a nice wad of cash while you're at it.
Rogue Trip plays like a Twisted Metal version of Hold the Flag, or Keep Away. The objectives remain the same. Destroy all the enemies in each map to progress to the next area, but the added twist comes with the tourists. Each map has one tourist for all to fight over. The one who has the tourist earns cash, by not only having the tourist, but by running them to photo ops throughout each level. Cash is the only way to refill your life at repair stands, and can also be used to upgrade your weapons as well. So basically, if you want to survive, knowing how much the computer likes to gang up on you, it's in your best interest to be in possession of the tourist. The game does play almost exactly like Twisted Metal, from the controls to even the special maneuvers as well. But if I was going to be so bold, I would almost be willing to call this the real Twisted Metal 3 because of it being developed by Singletrack. Either way, this is still one of the best and one of the most overlooked vehicular combat games on the PS1. If you love Twisted Metal, hunt Rogue Trip down. And did I mention that you get to play as a weenie mobile? That sells the game right there. Here's a game that requires no introduction for those familiar with the PS1. The Tenchu series has since fallen into near obscurity in today's gaming world, but back in 1998 it made a pretty big splash. A modern stealth ninja game that had similar elements that are common to the genre, but it was released before Metal Gear Solid. Metal Gear Solid was the standard bearer for the modern stealth genre, but Tenchu was a nice appetizer to the main course.
What? Who are you?
I'm here to avenge all the innocent people you've hurt.
Somebody help! Get him! Get him!
It looks like you chose the wrong party to crash.
Looks like you chose the wrong party to crash. I still, to this day, say that all the time. But no one ever understands my geek reference. In Tenchu, you take control of either Rikimaru or Ayame, and you traverse openly designed levels trying to avoid detection while killing enemies silently. Without being seen, you score stealth kills on your opponents. However, upon detection, disposing of your opponents becomes quite a bit more difficult, especially with the quirky fighting system in place that takes a bit of learning to get the hang of. Before which means getting pummeled by your opponents. The levels leave the players open to explore and open to choose how they want to play. If you don't want to be stealthy, there's no punishment for running in with blatant disregard for stealth. Well, aside from your life being drained from the tough fighting. The coolest gameplay mechanic has to be the grappling hook. Players aim the grappling hook at any roof or high structure and watch as their chosen character zooms away to the spot they aimed at. This allows players to stalk an enemy, unseen from the rooftops, drop down for a stealth kill, and then zoom back to the safety of the rooftops. The grappling hook isn't without its quirks. You have to line it up just right or your character won't grab the edge of the roof or the structure you're aiming for. But it adds to the exhilaration. Dropping down to stealth kill an enemy, knowing another enemy is close by, and having a few second window to zoom away before you're seen by the other enemy in the area. Amongst the cool stealth kills, tough sword fighting, and other cool items you gain and use along the way, the grappling hook is still the most distinguishing feature of Tenchu's gameplay. In every level you play, you get graded by your performance, and it seems to be sometimes random but preset enemy layouts. Like the game rotates preset layouts every time you play a level to keep you guessing. Good thing is, once you beat a level, that level is opened up and you can go back and play it to get the best rank. I have no doubt that many people have spent hours upon hours replaying the levels in Tenchu to get the highest rank, which requires absolute stealth. In 1999, the Japanese apparently got an upgraded version of Tenchu that had levels that were added for the American release that weren't in the Japanese original. The upgraded version also had a level editor. This version was never made available in North America, so we never had the opportunity to design our own levels in the original Tenchu. That is, unless you had or have the import version of the game. And I know it seems like a small complaint because of the editor in Tenchu 2, but it would have been a very nice touch to have it in the original Tenchu, which is favored over its sequel. However, there is a debug mode cheat that players can play around with that allows you to set items and enemies in a level, and I've heard of people losing hours to playing around with it, making sort of modified versions of each level. Graphically, the environments have a respectable amount of detail by PS1 standards. They get the job done, but certainly aren't top tier. The game, as you can see, is plagued by a poor draw distance, making visibility poor and sometimes getting you discovered by enemies that pop into view, seemingly out of nowhere. Luckily, this is combated with the quick look feature, allowing you to look around and take notice of your environments on the fly. The controls take some getting used to as well. The basic movement controls are the Tomb Raider tank controls, though with faster turning. And the combat has quite a few extra maneuvers you can pull off outside of the basic combo. There is no analog support, so those not familiar with early 3D D-pad controls will have a tougher time learning them, though the movement isn't as straining on your thumb as the previously mentioned Tomb Raider series. The music is also a spectacular highlight, but the voice acting is just so-so.
Get away! Help me, somebody!
Your bodyguards are dead. And you are next.
Tenchu is one of the more fondly remembered PS1 games. Its design and feel is uniquely PlayStation 1. That's the best way to describe its overall feel. It's one of those series that had its height of popularity on the PS1, but that popularity didn't carry it too far into the next generation. Wrath of Heaven, first released on the PS2, was released in a generation of gaming where popular tastes had shifted, and as such never had a fair chance in the gaming media, but that's another subject for another time. However, if you have fond memories of playing Tenchu, or have recently gone back and are trying to collect PS1, having maybe missed out on the system in the height of popularity, Tenchu is definitely a must-play for every PS1 gamer.